goal to fight for. It's up to all of us. And then we're going to talk through some strategies to give people some tools to actually do this. So you should walk away with this with some actual real things that you can incorporate into your life. On your chairs, there are some white pieces of paper. If you think of a question during the discussion, you can write it down and pass it forward. Obviously, that's anonymous, which is helpful. And then today's moderator is Angela Townsend. She's a Milwaukee native. She's a graduate of Northwestern and Marquette Universities. She writes about cancer research, reproductive issues, women's health, and other medical developments for The Plain Dealer and Cleveland.com. So everyone give it up today for our amazing panelists.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. I'm going to introduce the panelists now that the last one has arrived. And I'm really excited for this discussion because there is nobody on this panel who is shy. So we should get a really active discussion going, and hopefully as we go through our discussion, that will provoke some questions from you. So let me start out with the first panelist, Antonio Garcia. Antonio is an associate partner at Gravity Tank, an innovation consultancy with offices in Chicago and San Francisco. He leads the firm's interaction design discipline and its social innovation practices across healthcare and education. Antonio also teaches at Northwestern, yay, and the Institute of Design. His side projects include DJing, illustration, and Cinema of the Sick, an annual horror movie film festival now in its 9th year. Next to him is Donald Wooten, who didn't give me anything to introduce him, so I'm just making this up. He's a graphic designer, screen printer, and the founder of Stolen Outfitters, apparel for the active mind, the mission of which is to strive to offer customers concepts and visuals that invigorate the spirit and encourage the wearers to think and act beyond the parameters of mindless fashion. Does that sound about right?
That was damn good.
Okay, cool. Next to him is Maurice Cherry. He is the creative principal at 318 Media, the founder and chairman emeritus of the Black Weblog Awards, and the founder, editor-in-chief, and co-host of Revision Path, a podcast that showcases Black web designers, graphic designers, and web developers worldwide. Next to Maurice is Linda Ayala. She has a BA in art with a concentration in drawing from Cleveland State University. She's been in numerous shows and community events in the greater Cleveland area and Columbus, and ran Walleye Gallery in Cleveland, organizing 27 shows in 2 years with her partners. A little over a year ago, she began working in puppet building and puppeteering, and very recently started Fuzzy Lemon Studios, her latest project, creating puppets for the documentary Tiny Out Loud, and narrating as the character Dory. Next to her, his name might only be 4 letters long, but people often get it wrong. Named after a popular character in a Spanish soap opera, Luis Cabrera. Luis recently joined the dark side and has a new career in IT, where he uses his charm and creative voodoo to enhance the user experience of business applications. Luis enjoys craft beers, gaming, and mentoring, something I'm sure we'll be talking about a little bit later. And last but not least, Jacinda Walker. She's a native Clevelander, designer, instructor, and entrepreneur who loves working for the advancement of young people. She's an Aquarius. She has a serious thing for the color magenta, and her favorite font really is Helvetica. She comes to us today from The Ohio State University, where she is obtaining, settle down, where she is obtaining her MFA in Design Research and Development. This is our panel. Before we launch, give it up for her.
Oh, thank you.
Before we launch into our discussion, I want to throw out some stats. There are some stats that are being looped for you to kind of digest and kind of get a sense of where we're coming from with our discussion, but I wanted to throw some other things out to you. As of 2013, the population in the U.S. is about 316,128,839 people. About 39–40% of that is minority. But that's going to change, and it's already started changing. Census Bureau trends project that minorities will be the new minority in the next, probably 20–30 years, and that shift has already started. When you're talking about U.S. residents under the age of 5, the toddler demographic, if it hasn't already happened, whites will soon be the minority in the under 5 population. And when you're talking about U.S. residents under the age of 18, and they're everywhere, in the next 5 years, minorities will be more than half of that group. So from the youngest, we're already seeing those changes. And so with that, we kind of start our discussion. And I'm going to throw it out by asking all of the panelists, what's that one annoying question about diversity that you seem to have to field every time that people want to know about you or about what you do, why you do it, and all that stuff. So I'll start with you, Antonio.
All right. Before I start, I just want to thank everybody for coming. Because talking with Jacinda, it sounded like the turnout last year was a little smaller than this. So it's awesome to see this many people here. Obviously, you guys think this is at least interesting, if not important, and that there's just a huge wide variety of people here is inspiring and heartening to me, and probably everybody else on the panel. So thanks. But to your question about most annoying, I don't know that it's annoying, but it's just kind of funny. I'm often, not so much where I work now, but as a designer, asked to sort of be the surrogate representative for like all Latinos in the world at any given point.
And you know everybody, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No, but right. So just that, I can offer my opinion and my experiences as, one Latino, as one Puerto Rican from Chicago with this particular life. But, I can make some broad generalizations, but it's usually, it's just funny. I can't really represent like all Latinos for everybody all the time and weigh in on an opinion on something. So,
Okay. Donald, what about you?
I'm going to piggyback off of what Antonio said and say thank you all for coming out. My question is probably the most difficult question in the universe, which is why. I don't like how I'm asked why. Like, why do you do this if you're 6'3"? You should be playing basketball or something. Very weird question to be asked by someone, especially someone that can't design. So my answer is usually because I can, and then we move on. So that is my annoying question.
Maurice?
My annoying question is probably, why do you focus on black blank, whether that's black designers and developers through Revision Path, whether that's black bloggers and videocasters through the Black Web Blog Awards? Why is all of the work, I guess the big public-facing work that you do, black? And really, I guess when I started the Black Web Blog Awards, I did it because there was an absence, I felt, online of that particular voice. I started the Black Web Blog Awards in 2005, and when I started it, I saw that there were other blogging awards and things like that, but they didn't really showcase any black bloggers, at least not any that I knew, really not even any of the categories, not even the best African or Mediterranean blog would have a black finalist, which to me seemed a little odd. And so I started it because I wanted to see that recognition, and really everything that I've done with my work, whether it's the Black Web Blog Awards, Revision Path, or even any of my upcoming projects, for me it's all about recognition and showcasing. And I feel that that's important because if we don't tell our stories, then no one else will.
Linda, the most annoying question that you can think of.
I get a lot of dumb comments, that's for sure. But the most annoying would be, and I think it's coming from an innocent place because a lot of people don't know what's the difference between nationality, ethnicity, race, culture. So I get a lot of, what's your nationality? I'm American. No. Where are you from? I'm from Ohio. No. Where are you from? I'm from Lorain, Ohio. No. Where are you from? I'm from St. Joe's Hospital in downtown Lorain. We can go on a pilgrimage there if we want to. No. So it's just this multi-tiered, and then it can lead to, what are you? I'm a woman. What are you? You know, it's so. Then what's your nationality? For a lot of people, it is an innocent question. But then the what are you? If you really think about it, it's like, what are you? What are you doing? That's my big one.
Luis.
Pretty similar to hers. I don't get this as direct anymore, but now that I'm in the professional world, I used to get the question, are you mixed? Like as the name Luis Cabrera wasn't enough, like they would just think I'm mixed with black and white. Like that's what they saw. I would have had to elaborate. Like no, I'm Latino. Now I get it as, oh, are you originally from Cleveland? Like that's really what they're asking is, are you, what are you? Where are you from? It's like just, if you want to know where my heritage, where my family's from, just ask directly. Like I'm Dominican. I was born in the Dominican Republic. But yeah, that's one of those things that if people could just be direct and ask that question instead of beating around the bush or taking crazy guesses. Once a coworker asked me, he was like, I bet your mom makes really good tacos. And,
Nice.
like she said, it was kind of innocent. I was like, oh, Cinco de Mayo's coming up. It's like, yeah, you know what? My mom does make really great tacos, but it's not because I'm Mexican, if that's what you're thinking. So, yeah.
Wow. Jacinda, I know you have an annoying question. That,
Oh man, I've been in the game 20 years, so I've heard 3 or 4 days. Okay, but my favorite is when I kind of go into the room. I do a lot of networking. Anybody who knows me knows I love going through things and hanging out and just talking about design. And so I love when I go and we're introducing ourselves and what kind of work we do. And I'm like, well, I'm a graphic designer. Really? Jacinda, wow. Like, I never met one of you before. Where did they find you at? You're like the only black graphic designer I've ever met. Like, where? Well, are there more of you? Where are you hiding at? Where are y'all at? I've gotten asked questions so bad once I had to tell them, this black don't fade. So if you don't see us, it's kind of your own problem because we are here and we're here to stay. And so I love, that's the one. What? Oh my gosh.
Well, it speaks to your shirt that you're wearing.
Yeah.
I know. That's it. We're here. We're going to be here. We ain't leaving.
Design and print.
Yes.
So that's my super question.
Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit later about where you all actually are hiding. So we will get to that a little bit later, so everybody can find you.
Like, by the way,
Okay, so here's my first broad question. What is diversity, and why is it so important? Why even bother talking about it? Isn't everything cool? Obama's president, it's post-racial. I mean, everything should be fine. So what's so big deal about diversity?
Can I jump in? I think everybody came here because they wanted to be inspired or hear different points of view. And it wasn't a race thing or a gender thing or a sexuality thing. It was to hear a perspective that you don't normally hear. And so I think when I think of diversity in its like broadest sense, it's that. So being exposed to stuff that you don't get on a daily basis broadens your mind. And I think that's part of a lot of the can-dos and next steps that we'll get into at the end. But it's if you fine-tune your Facebook feed or the people you follow on Twitter so tightly that they just represent kind of you and yours, or this very myopic insular view, you're not getting any dissenting points of view. You're not getting anything that challenges you or pushes your mind. You're just sort of hearing what people just like you who are into the same sorts of stuff talk about. And that gets really boring after a while and can sort of give you this misrepresentation of the world if that's sort of the only inputs you have. So I think that's why it matters, is just the more diverse the viewpoints, the better, more interesting things we'll design together.
I agree with that. I would also say variety is the spice of life. If we're in the creative field, the last thing we really want to do is climb inside of a box. You know, imagine if a Pantone bridge was only 1 page long. You know, if there were only 5 PMS colors. Like, how whack would life be? You know, realistically. You know, and there are thousands of colors in there, just like there are thousands of different shades of skin. And, you know, deeper than that, imagination comes from within the mind anyway. So it's a reflection of those different experiences, those unique and individual experiences that kind of bring the imagination out and is expressed outwardly for everybody to actually take part in. The artist kind of does it and leaves it up to everybody else to figure out what they just did. So it's important for other people to go looking for it to figure it out.
Well, I think if we're looking at it from a business standpoint, say for an agency or a creative studio or something like that, diversity is important so you don't have a monoculture when you're maybe presenting to clients or you're coming up with ideas. If you have sort of all of the same type of demographic coming up with the same idea, then eventually what happens is you get, you know, sort of pigeonholed into that particular style. And, you know, for some agencies, that's a good thing. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. They shouldn't have a unique style, but diversity is important because it helps, piggybacking off what Antonio said, it sort of broadens your mind. It gives you more depth and breadth into different concepts that you can bring, not just to your work life and your creative life, but your everyday life as well.
Yeah, so going off of the variety, diversity is, it's race, it's gender, it's sexual orientation, it's profession, and it can be on a government level, whether it's teeny tiny in a little community or all the way to our government, or whether it's a business. And I feel what's so important on whatever scale is that whoever is in that community is represented in that committee, in that workforce, in that profession, in that council, so that everybody with their own history, their own experiences, they have a voice at the table. And it's heard, and it's rather than just, and we've seen this in government where, you know, a certain group of people kind of rule and then the rest of the people are left like, hey, what about us and our needs? Yeah, it's that broad spectrum of what's in the community really ought to be reflected in whatever that it may be.
I think by the time I got here, it was pretty well covered. But as Antonio mentioned, you know, as designers, as creative people, inspiration is the fuel that we have, right? That's you know, our toolbox is made out of. So if your inspiration only comes from one circle, then like your toolbox is pretty limited, right? So you know, as the population changes, as our projects change, you want to be you know, able to take on those projects and you know, having a diverse tool set and be able to draw inspiration from different areas, different cultures, different ideas makes you the better designer, the better creative person.
You know, I got to come at it from a business aspect because unfortunately I've been in environments where I was the only creative and sometimes they don't hear that creative language and you got to come up with something else. And so I like to hit them in the pocket and just let them know exclusion simply is not profitable. It's just, you're not going to make no money with exclusion. Inclusion is where the money come from. Inclusion is where the variety comes in. Inclusion is when we can come together and come up with better ideas, more ideas, better ideas, and really, really be able to reach the broad spectrum. And being able to understand that sometimes and saying that to people, they kind of just go, oh my God, wow. You know, you just got to hit them with the dollars.
So, Jacinda, you just mentioned being the only. And for a lot of designers of color, it's not uncommon for them to be the only one in the room, the only one at the agency, the only. So I want all of you, if this has been your experience, to talk about what being the only has been like and what are the challenges of being the only one. What is expected of you when you are the only one in that place of work?
It's really, you know, I started out I was the only one in college. I was the only one in high school. I'm the only one now in grad school. I'm a professional only one. And being the only means that you got to be strong. you have to be strong. You gotta be more creative. You gotta be quicker, faster, better. It makes you more aggressive. It makes you grittier because you're the only one. And going through being the only one, I've learned to cope by bringing more people in. So I regularly travel places with my mentees, and I keep like a list of close friends that I always invite places, so that I'm not the only one, because I know I'm not the only one. It's just in that little circle, I'm the only one. The other thing too that I've really started to do and to cope, because there is a coping involved with being the only one, because it can get to your psyche. I mean, it really can get to your psyche, because like every day when you go to work, you are the only one that either does what you do, that looks how you look, or sounds how you sound. So it can wear on you. And I think that maybe my fourth job is when I really started going, okay, I'm gonna shake off the negativity. I'm gonna own that I am the only one, And I think when I started accepting and acknowledging and coming up with different tools and things so that I wouldn't be, I was coping a lot better. I don't know how they dealt with it, but I was good.
Yeah. Like Jacinda said, it can get to you. It's a lonely road. Sometimes you have those thoughts like, you look around and you're in your classroom, you're at a conference or whatever, and it's like, well, why am I here? Am I should I be here? Like,
Yes.
what is it that I'm doing that the others aren't doing, or maybe I shouldn't be here, But like she said, you have to dig a lot deeper, and we all have to dig deeper, but it just feels like you think about those things, and other people probably don't, right? And you have to put your goal up top again, and you have to remember what you're trying to do, where you're trying to get to, and you just keep going. It would be nice if there were more like me, maybe, so you wouldn't feel as lonely. But yeah, it can be a lonely road, and I think that alone kind of deters people from continuing. And if you look at your friends or other people that are all like you, and they themselves what, you're a designer, what are you doing? You'll go back to second guessing again. None of my other friends are doing this. They don't seem any interest in this. But just like every other designer, every other creative person, that's who you are inside. And there's no way, you wouldn't want to be anything else. So you have to do this. It's who you are. So what? Unfortunately, just others aren't following or whatever. But you just have to do it. But it can be very lonely. Yep.
That's really interesting, because I think when I'm that one, I don't feel lonely. I'm the ambassador. You guys are getting the awesome of the awesome here. All right. So I just kind of go for it, and I don't feel I almost feel, like a pioneer, first, or oh, I never met a Puerto Rican. Awesome. Tell your friends. But there is that loneliness when you go home, and then it's okay, you're studying art, you go to school to color. Go learn a trade. What are you doing? It's oh yeah, I'm that weird one who's the vegan or vegetarian, and I draw. So it's kind of.
Yeah, sometimes the thing about being the only blank employee, whether that's you're the only black employee, you're the only female employee, etc., it often means having to put up with a lot of microaggressions that, it's something that I'm not sure that a lot of people might not be that familiar with, but it's not any really strong outward racial type of thing or gender type of thing or anything, but it may be small, tiny things. Like say if you were starting to wear your first day of work and they gave you a pink name badge or something, why would they? Yeah, it's like little, right, small little thing. So it's having to sort of put up with those microaggressions. Oftentimes, from anywhere, you never never know what's going to happen. And of course, still be able to do your job to the best of your ability. Piggyback on what Jacinda said, kind of having to be sort of twice as good almost, because you're not only having to be a professional at your job, but you've also got to like not put up with all the shit that is making you stir crazy when you're just trying to do your job, trying to work, just trying to get through the day. No incidents, like having a little incident thing, like 0 days. So
0 days without a cultural incident.
right. So oftentimes, I mean, for me particularly, like I grew up in a pretty much mostly like my elementary school was black, mostly black, middle school, high school, went to an HBCU, I live in Atlanta. So there's not really that many places I go where I'm the only black person. But generally, like if I'm dealing with clients or if I work with startups, I sometimes will tend to be the only in that particular thing. And it's having to sort of put up with those microaggressions that can often sort of get in your way from just you trying to do your job.
The microaggressions that Maurice just talked about are pretty much what made me want to start my own business.
Me too. Me too.
I started off screen printing for a very small company in Maplewood, New Jersey called Ideal Jacobs. Since I left them, they bought a complete factory in like Mongolia or something. Like my boss was like an utter and total genius as a businessman and as a strategist, because he hired me to make the people in the back uncomfortable. And I didn't realize that until later on down the line when I was working two-man jobs by myself. I would print on an automated machine, and there would usually have to be someone at the end of the conveyor belt to check each print that I did to make sure there weren't any pinholes or miscellaneous dots where they weren't supposed to be. And I would usually have to do both ends. I would print and then have to walk to the end of the conveyor belt and look at what I just printed, while the person that was supposed to be helping me would be sitting at a table cleaning his toenails, quite literally. Quite literally. He was hired as a contingency to get his father, who was a master tool and die cutter. So in effect, I was hired to really do his job just to appease the father. It took me a while to figure this out. And after I did, I kind of made the resolution within myself that this is not going to last, but I'm going to take everything that I can from this and structure change. And that ultimately is what led me into starting a screen printing business and leveraging the design skills I have against making better screens, because most of the screen printers that I were dealing with at that time really weren't designers. They were just like toolsmiths. So it just made sense. Being the only one in that situation, it didn't create a bitterness within me as much as it gave me a drive to make my own, because I saw a guy make maybe $10 million a year with 15 employees, and he's never failed. Like right now, he's just doing things globally because his mind state is what it is, and he's Jewish, but he never hired based on that. He hired based specifically on skill set. And that's what I took from it. I could have took the experience in the back room, but none of those guys were bosses. None of them could hire anybody. They were all workers, and that was the extent of their mentality. So rather than absorb what they were giving off, I absorbed what was working, which was my boss. And his name is Andy Jacobs, real cool guy. I call him regularly, at least once a year, to check up on him. He always remembers me, put me in 2 of his books that he wrote. And I use that as my motivation, sans the negative experience, but it does happen.
Do you have any only experiences, Antonio?
Yeah, I don't want to just fill the spot because we went back and forth down the line. So, no, I mean at Gravity Tank, we do global work. So, super diverse group of people, managing partners, Indian, Cubana, white guy, like. We got a great mix, so I can't really complain. And even on my interaction team, we have 2 African-American women on the team, so it's like women in tech is rare, and we've got 2 on our team, and they're both black. And I don't know, I lucked out, and I think I have a skewed view of things thanks to that. But so yeah, I'm not going to complain that I'm the only one.
Okay. Well, okay, now that you've just mentioned kind of the makeup of where you work, let me throw a hypothetical, and I think all of you have heard me ask this hypothetical. Does it matter if a company has anybody of color or a large number of people of color, if they have the philosophy of diversity, if they are walking the walk, talking the talk, and if they are creating a diverse product, or if what they're doing is addressing different populations in the world, doesn't matter if you have X number of people of color. And on the flip side, if you do have those people of color, then do you have to do the diversity work because you've hired people of color? And so does that mean that your job is done?
That's a good, complex question. I think it's more important to do diverse work that impacts a broad range of people, because I think that's why we design. Like, we design to solve problems and to communicate. And so if we can affect more people or represent voices that are not typically heard and create change that way, I think that should be what we do as makers. And then second is the benefit that you get from having community or shared experiences or having people who look like you at your work. I think I could personally sustain myself working at a place where I didn't see a ton of diversity, but we did a lot of diverse work and we impacted a lot of diverse people in positive ways, and then find my diversity outside of work, in social, groups or something like that. So I would prioritize diverse work over necessarily like a diverse team. But that's totally my personal take.
I would agree with that. I would say that a diverse workforce gives you more solutions. It might unearth more methodology because you got input coming from so many different backgrounds and experiences. And as Jacinda said, it's an inclusion thing. We have a global economy. It's not just the USA anymore. So when you start talking about being able to sell things around the world to people who you did not actually grow up immersed in their culture, it's important to have people like on concept with you that were. So that way you're not guessing. Guessing costs money.
I like what you said about inclusion. I feel like that is really the almost the corollary, or should be the corollary or the byproduct, perhaps, of having a diverse workforce or a company that really embraces diversity in their values. I feel like if they embrace it in their values, then it should trickle through the workforce or the clients or things like that through some cultural osmosis or something. It should happen that way. But inclusion is important because just because you have X number of Black and Latino employees, do they feel welcome there? Is it an environment where more can come in and work? Or is it just, we have these tokens and here they are? It's that sort of thing. So inclusion is really important just to make sure that you're creating, a workforce or an environment or something where people will feel welcome. I know that I've heard from many designers that I have interviewed, for example, that they will not look at even working for an agency if they know they'll be the only person of color working there. Because it's like, do I want to be the trailblazer? Do I want to be the one there? Not looking at their work at all. It's more about, am I going to feel comfortable being there just as an employee? So inclusion is definitely a huge part of, I think it should be a huge part. If any company really values diversity, inclusion needs to be right up there with it.
Well, let me jump in before anybody adds to that. So if a company is trying to diversify their workplace and they haven't, and if people on the outside are saying, well, okay, I'm going to interview with this company, but I don't see anybody there who looks like me, I'm not sure if I want to be part of that. How does that change if there's nobody there that they can connect with? I'm throwing that out and maybe throwing that.
We need to change that within ourselves and be confident because
Yeah.
right now in my job, I work in a library. It's my day job. And I am the only Latina. And I don't go to work thinking, all right, put your Latina hat on, you're the only one, represent. I don't do that. And when I applied, I didn't think about it when I got into the field. I didn't think about that. It was like, I want to do this. I don't want to be in the library field anymore. But when I was getting into that field, I'm like, I'm going to do this, and I don't care if my people are not involved. I don't care. This is what I want to do. So, yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I was thinking further back before you started talking that, well, if people are advertising a position of a graphic designer and they get 50 applications and they're like, wow, there's no Latinos, there's no African Americans, there's no Chinese, there's no, all we have is, no, we don't have. So, I mean, is that the fault of the company? What is it, the chicken or the egg? What came first? Maybe it really does need to start with us and say, screw that. I want to work for that company. I like their work. I like what they do. I'm going to go for it.
I think what ends up happening with a lot of companies is there's a mixed message that happens. You know, I had an opportunity to talk to an advertising agency in Columbus, and the recruiter came because she wanted to find diverse people. And what a lot of companies and recruiters that miss communication is that, you know, there are like 4 layers in diversity. It's like different, it's different. When you say, oh, I'm diverse, well, does that mean you are diverse for physically challenged people and you put signs a little lower and that you have handicap accessible doors and you have a ramp in your building? Does that mean that when I go to work, you offer me a pink name tag so as a girl I feel comfortable? You know, does that mean...
Well, it is magenta, Jacinda.
Thank you.
That's the pink.
Recognize.
I mean, that's in the pink family, so it should be okay for you.
Yes, yes. I mean, and the thing about it was when I was talking to the recruiter, I asked her, I'm like, well, you know, that's really great because, you know, of course, you know, we saw each other in the crowd. We gave each other the black head nod like, you know. So we met over in the corner. We chatted. And she was like, well, you know, where's the others? You know, I'm looking, you know, I want to diversify the company. I'm like, well, what kind of diversity does your company have? She goes, well, I think black. She's black, but she doesn't know what the company's diversity challenge or situation or outlook is. So it's already a miscommunication because as a black recruiter, she's going in looking at ethnicity. But she don't know if her company is more for physical challenges, is it gender, is it sexuality? And so there's age, wow. So she's already, the ripple effect of uncomfortability and unknowing and has already begun. It has already begun. By the time it gets to the applications and they're looking at the names, it's a wrap right there.
Yeah. I would just say that like intentional inclusion or having an agenda to diversify your office or whatever, nothing's going to trump having, you know, high quality work in a portfolio or shitty work in a portfolio. So agenda aside, no one's going to hire somebody with poor work just because they're like, well, we can check the box on that guy and put him in, you know, to work over here. So having great work is, I think, at least at Gravity Tank, we're hiring around point of view. So, you know, do you have an intelligent point of view? Are you bringing a different point of view to the firm? Almost above work, even, you know, because like you can learn skills, we can teach you skills, but we can't change like your perspective and outlook on the work. And so we hire for that first. And so kind of with that, trying to have diverse points of view, you end up bringing more diverse people on. But I think that should be the top priority is, you know, are you thinking differently about the work? Do you have an interesting story to tell? What are you bringing to this that we don't already have? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't care geography or like how many UV rays have hit this particular place and made your skin a different color. Like, it just does, that should not matter. Right. And even just, we were talking in the back around like ethnicity versus race. Like, race is actually the wrong way to look at it. Like, biologically, we are not different. You know, like, we haven't formed like subspecies of humans yet. We haven't evolved to that point. So the whole idea of race is like, it's a moot point. Like, anthropologists, biologists have already thrown that out. Like, it's not a way to measure anything. So we should be talking about ethnicity.
I mean, no, that's an excellent point. This is the reason why it's called a diversity panel and not a panel on racism. That's way too broad a topic to cover, right. And it kind of leaves the field of design and goes into the field of life. Diversity is exactly what we deal with when we try not to do the same thing over and over again, you know, and get a different result. So that is exactly why we're talking about this from this perspective instead of it being a race-based thing. This is really about how having different people under your umbrella affects your end product, and why it's so necessary not to pigeonhole your projections like that. You might be doing this good this year, catering to this many people, and that's cool, but business is ever changing. The landscape of business is changing because of technology, and it's being opened up to so many other people that you did not consider before, that you might really want to start considering them all now, because it's not going to wait for you. You can just look around and see different businesses disappearing that thought they would never, ever leave or lose their foothold because they weren't keeping up with where the world is going. The world isn't all one way. The world is already diverse without anybody's permission. It's important for us to actually open our minds up to inclusion and bringing people into our lives and our experiences so that we can get that much broader. It makes no sense for us to log on and be able to see everything in the world but not actually want to interact with it real time.
That's what's so important about that, Donald, because, as designers, we communicate messages.
Absolutely.
We start this. And not, ego aside and all. We put these messages out there. We put these pictures out there. We put these images out there. So then it kind of comes into you, as your client's telling you something stupid and it's not right. How, when? And so to me, as a designer, I can't, let this go, so to speak. I can't let this diversity go. I'm putting out the image of why you think this way or why you feel this way. I control that. We just got to do better.
So what makes all of you special in terms of how you relate to your clients, what you're bringing to your companies, or if you're solo, what your product is as people of color? What do you bring to the table that's different?
Go ahead, Donald. I know you want it.
All right. My thing is this. There are a lot of black small and medium businesses that are talent-focused instead of considering marketing. So when it comes time to compete, their graphic design and their marketing is usually an afterthought, and it's an expense that they didn't really consider, or it's an added value that they almost always feel like they can do without. And I primarily came into it from a customer education standpoint, even though I'm actually a designer and an illustrator. I spent a good deal more time just talking to my clients about why not they should hire me, but they should at least consider not hand painting the sign that's hanging out in front of their store on a piece of wood or a cardboard box or something. Like that's not going to draw anybody into your store. Same difference if your website looks like it's from '98. Did they even have websites in '98? You get my point. If your website looks like that, but you're charging top dollar for what it is that you're offering, just trying to structure people's black and small and medium businesses to think along those lines. And what happened was I diversified my offerings so that I could take some of the decisions out of their hands. I really hated selling people logos and then seeing that logo later on misproportioned and just pixelated and weird. Like, I gave you the master file. Why are you using the JPEG? Why are you using the web version of this and then for everything and then stretching it out? So don't touch that. I'll do your business card. I'll do your flyer. I'll do your website. I'll print your shirts. I'll walk your dog if the price is right. The principle of it is I wanted to be able to create an incubator for these businesses that goes beyond their talent. And they start to think along the lines of, well, you have to compete. It's not just you, and what you're doing is not the greatest thing. You have to convince people that what you're doing is the greatest, greater than whoever's on the left or right of you when you're sitting on the shelf and you're nowhere around to pitch your product. And it works, maybe 2% of the time, which is why I sell shirts. The variable is the design. Might take 2 weeks to finish a job, might take 2 years to finish a job, depending on the client. If I sell you a shirt, I sell you a shirt. If I'm printing your shirts, I'm printing your shirts. I still get the ability to educate in either direction. I still get the ability to be involved at the grassroots level with what could be a successful venture. So I'm happy either way. I'm fulfilled, even though I'm not rich. I'm fulfilled by the fact that what I spend my days doing is not compromised, is not filtered by a boss above me. So yeah, I am the entrepreneur on the panel. I don't have a bunch of stories about working in cubicles and being marginalized by my coworkers. I don't have those stories. I wake up, I take care of my kids, I walk in the basement, and then I print. And then my wife comes home and I cook. That's what I do. But the principle of it is the structure of my life and my day revolves around everything that I do, the businesses that I deal with, and really what keeps me going are the ones that get it. I'm motivated because the problem still exists. These businesses exist. There are very talented Black, small, and medium businesses out there that no one will ever know about, but then you go to a place like Atlanta where everything is branded very well, where you can have something that isn't franchised, but it's sitting next to McDonald's and it's competing and probably beating McDonald's down because they put that much thought into their signage and the decor when you walk inside. And they made sure they thought about it where they want you to stay for more than 45 minutes and spend money while you're there. That's well beyond the recipes and the food that they serve. And I bring that back with me. And the same way traveling makes you diverse, a lot of the businesses that I deal with have never left their area. So the more I travel, the more people I interact with, I can bring it back to them. So that's like my role, and that's what I get out of what it is that I do. I don't work for anybody, I work for me.
Okay. Anybody else want to tackle that? What do you bring to the table, to your company, to your clients?
So obviously, if you're hired, it's because you meet some level of competency or able to do the job. But there's those intangibles that others might not have, right? So we talk about changing the culture and bringing in diversity. She mentioned about being the trailblazer, being that the ambassador. If you really take your what you're saying seriously about changing the culture to be more diverse, like you're hiring people that can do that, right? So not only can I come and do the job, but are these employees that you have that probably don't have interactions with people like me, I'm there now, and maybe there's questions I can answer. Maybe they can see that I'm legit. I'm not what you see on TV. I'm not in a novella. I'm not, like you can see that. I'm a person just like you. Hey, and maybe slowly we could change the minds, and 50 years from now we won't have to have a panel about this. But it has to start some way, somehow. So, if you keep hiring the same people, the circle's going to be the same. The change is never going to start. So, you're hiring us because we can do the job just like everybody else, but because there is also a chance, an opportunity for us to get it started, right? So I think that's something that we definitely bring to the table.
I think it's really interesting about the other people because I've had the opportunity of sitting in on a lot of hiring sessions and the interview panel and often we're looking at the portfolios that Antonio talked about and they're kind of looking the same. They're kind of looking the same. And I was on an interview once and I asked, well, where did we get these people? Since everybody's book looks the same, where did these people come from? And they're like, oh, well, we call, and they sent, and well, did you guys ever think about just getting going different places to look for the people? Looking at different schools and different locations, like, did we call a HBCU? Did we call another Latino person like, hey, listen, I really want to know something in this community. Help me to ask that. Just ask. Linda, if I called you up, you'd give me some information. Right? It's not rocket science. So part of understanding and getting through that is being willing to have the conversation and when you're in the room to say something. And that is challenging. I will admit it's really challenging, but too many times I've seen that go bad. And you hire a bad designer, then I got to do their work and my work. I'm already doing somebody else's job too. So no, we just got to bring the better people.
HBCU for everybody.
Oh, historically Black universities, colleges and universities.
going off of the art community, I can't stand it when I get the call or I get an email and that people only consider me for Hispanic Heritage Month.
Oh, yes.
And little side note, it's not Hispanic Awareness Month. Because we have the disease month to be aware of breast cancer. So Hispanic is not something you need to be aware of. It's not like, oh,
You got the Hispanic.
At least you got a month and a half. Listen, yours is a month and a half.
Hold on a second.
We
Black
do,
History Month's
that's
only
true.
28 days.
That's
I'm
true.
thinking y'all looking good for you got like 37.
Yeah, and so talking about the quality though, I have done these shows because like sure, yes, all right, but the problem is that they're like, oh, you're Hispanic, I'm putting you in the file folder of Hispanic artists, I haven't even seen your work, but you're involved. And so then when I get to these shows, and then you have, you know, the career artists who, you know, I adore, there's a lot of them in the Cleveland area, by the way, and their work is amazing, fantastic, and then you have the person who, yeah, I do this as a hobby, and I like to draw giraffes walking through Cleveland. And then you're like, oh my God. And then people come in, like, I'm going to see this show, this Hispanic Heritage show, and you're like, amazing, amazing. What is this stuff? It's not vetted. It's not vetted.
Yes.
It's not judged. It doesn't go through a jury. It's, you know, you're Hispanic, here's the mark on your forehead, come on in. And that is not a good representation. So keep in mind, if you do go to any of these shows, probably was not even picked through. And that's very frustrating, especially if you've gone to school, you work hard, you do your day job, you go home, you eat, you go and do work again. Your life 24/7 is working. And then you just have some people who, oh, I want to do this too. I'm in the Hispanic Heritage Show, yeah. And then, and it's very unfortunate to see with the amazing.
I have one last question for the panel before we start to open it up. And it's actually not really a question, it's more of a comment that in talking with you all before the panel, I heard over and over again, you know, we can't wait for somebody else to give us the opportunity. We can't wait for companies to change. We can't wait. We've got to do it ourselves. So talk a little bit about that.
I mean, now is the time for the small business person. I mean, there's so much leverage in your favor to do things without such an immense overhead to crush you in the first 6 months. That if you have any courage, I would advise you to invest it in yourself. If you're in the position that we're speaking to right now, where you feel as though you are waiting for somebody to go ahead and come looking for you, they're not going to come find you. That's just my outlook. I started off in school, one of 4. I graduated as the only one. It wasn't what made me want to graduate. Loving art made me want to graduate. After I graduated post 9/11. I'm competing with senior graphic designers, art directors, creative directors that all just got laid off. All right? Now I'm like, I'm super green. My portfolio looks like I'm straight out of school. I have no working pieces. And I understood this, but I just watched 2 buildings collapse. And I saw people jumping out of windows and things. So I can't act like this reality is the same as this catastrophe. If I actually have options that I can access, I'm going to access those options. And it's been trial and error, but it's not as expensive as the normal trial and error. Go get a brick and mortar spot. Go take out a bunch of loans that are going to destroy you. And then immediately start taking chances before you even build up your inventory to profit. I didn't do any of that stuff. You know, I started off selling what costed me no money to actually sell, which would be the design itself. I learned everything about client consultation that I could from the clients that I was dealing with. Obviously, the bigger the client, the broader your understanding. And after I got to a certain point where I said I need to offset the variable service with a retail product, that's when I started to look into what I couldn't do years before, which is start the screen printing venture. From dealing, well, just so that everybody knows, my company is Stolen Outfitters. the first 13 designs that we outsourced through Jack Prince. Okay? We dealt with a very nice young lady named Holly. Everything that we got for them was superb. It was extraordinary. People love those designs to this day, and that was like 5 years ago. Unfortunately, we spent like $10,000 on 13 designs. They were worth every penny. However, I could have bought a whole shop for that amount, and I did next year. And this is where we are now. The idea that I paid that money out to see what a really, really good product would look like. You know, and from that, I said, I want to be able to do this myself. And I did. Everything beyond that came off of the web. Every piece of equipment, every blank shirt. My whole business is like run through PayPal. I don't pay any merchant accounts. You know, I don't process credit. I don't have, pay large sums of money to process credit cards every month. I can swipe when I'm vending. I run my whole website, 3 websites, off of my phone. You know, like these things couldn't have been done 10 years ago. It was just impossible. You couldn't do it. So to be in this time where you have this leverage against you, you shouldn't wait till you get laid off or fired to actually do it. You should start testing the water now. And for people that might fall into this category that we're talking about where you're easily overlooked, and if you do get hired, you may get marginalized, your actual talent may get lost in the filter. Test the waters. Don't be scared. You're already an artist, so everybody thinks you're crazy. But just prove it. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead and prove it. You know?
Anybody else about creating your own opportunities?
I think what's really interesting right now is that it's this wonderful synergy of access and opportunity coming together. You know, Donald talks about running his business off his phone. Like, we have never been in a time where you could just look at your phone and check your money, you can check where your people at, you can call your friends, and you can check it with a client. In one swipe, I can check all of that. And because of that, that access is converting to more opportunity. Now, the sad thing, 20, 30 years ago, we couldn't do anything like that because you can't pass access. If I ain't got no access, I can't give you no access. Right. You can't pass it. You have to have that. But with the technology, access has become almost a nomenclature. It's even now. Everybody's got access. So this is the time to have this conversation. When people say, why? Well, we can do it later. No, I'm not waiting until later. I'm not going to forget about this. I'm not going to talk. No, we're going to do it now. And so that's what's so great about this time.
How's that quote go with something where it's like it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission? Yeah. So I know for me, when I started doing the Black Weblog Awards in 2005, I didn't know anything about awards. I had never put on an awards event. Everything that I learned was basically trial and error. Like you can't go to Barnes & Noble or Amazon and get a book like how to run a web award show. I basically just learned on my own as it went, year by year, mistake by mistake, things like that. And granted, with that, I mean, there are some things that I think we did good on. There are some things not so well. Feedback is always kind of mixed, that sort of thing. But you learn by doing. So when you're going out there and you're creating as a creator, as a designer, a maker, what have you, that's sort of your superpower, is that you're able to sort of make a way out of no way. You know, designers are problem solvers. If there's a problem out there that can be solved, the designer usually is the one that will, solve that problem. For me, sort of piggybacking kind of what you were talking about with the entrepreneurship thing. So I was really trying to think, like, when's the best time for me to quit my job and start my own business? Because I always was doing design on the side, like when I was in college, when I worked other jobs, I was always doing websites on the side. And it never clicked to me, like, when is going to be the best time to do it? And so for me, there were a number of different circumstances that happened, which sort of conflated around me being the only black employee. My boss would tell me, she would call these like single meetings and say, you know what, Maurice, I'm really intimidated by you. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? You're my boss. And I don't know what she was intimidated by, but she would tell me those sorts of things. And so at this particular job, I had gotten a promotion, but I didn't get a pay promotion. And I didn't know about it until like maybe a few months after. And so when I brought it up to her, she sort of brought out the whole, hey, I was intimidated by you. I didn't know how to talk to you about it, sort of thing. So the day that I got all my back pay was when I quit my job and started my business. So that was almost 6 years ago. So you kind of, for me, I was really waiting. And then the opportunity came and I was like, I'm taking it. I'm gone. But yeah, you really have to just, I mean, not to be corny, but you kind of have to step out on faith. If you have the faith in your talent that you can really create something, you just have to step out and do it. And it's amazing how when you do that, what resources and people will make themselves available, will come into your life to make sure that that happens.
I think this is the time where we will open it up. And let's see.
Jacinda, we have can-dos and Q&A, right? Okay.
Yeah. Here's one question. As a white designer, what are the practical things that I can do to have a positive impact on the diversity of the creative industries? So I think we do have some can-dos. You want to take that away, Jacinda?
Yeah, I'll swap out.
Okay.
Switch. Here. Sorry. Okay, so great question. Thanks. Great question. And in putting and thinking really, really hard about this topic, and I wanted to let everyone know and to really talk about the fact that it's not just our issue. Diversity is not just our issue because we're Black and Latino. Our diversity is everybody's issue. You know, I like to say that we're going to be here and we need to learn how to play in the sandbox. And so that's what these can-dos are about. So our first one is provide an internship opportunity. Like, this is really easy. Like, how many times y'all done been somewhere and you need somebody to do something for you? Like, you don't need nobody to help you with something at the job? Like, and the catch is that you might need somebody who's economically feasible.
Free.
Right. So this is a really easy one. Like, everybody who is in this room and who is working has had a situation where something's come up and it's been like, we need someone to just do this real quick. Okay, this is an easy one. Get somebody, look out, seek out. If you're going to want somebody, seek out and get that person, you know? Okay. This is a good one. Yes. Okay, now listen, we got this thing called social media.
Free.
Again, look at it. Get it, Donald. Get it. So here's my thing. If you look on your Facebook feed right now and you ain't got no Black friends,
Make some Black friends.
make some friends. Yes.
We don't mean making a fake account either.
Oh,
like, just
get it. Yes.
just look.
Because
where
we'll
they're
know.
talking. Yeah.
We'll see through it. Like,
And
we don't use that slang.
And don't be the person. I have a Black friend named Maurice. Don't be this. Just
I have a friend.
have a friend. Yeah, a real friend.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, we tell a lot of stories, and we insert like the color of that person's skin or whatever in the story, and it usually has like nothing to do with the story, but it's just like a weird thing that my dad does it all the time. It's super strange, and I'll wait because I'll be like, maybe there's a reason why he said that woman was Chinese at work, and then he'll finish his story, and I'll be like, Dad, did it matter that she was Chinese? And he's like, no. And I'm like, then why did you use that as like you could have described her so many more interesting ways? And he's like, that's a really good point, you know? And it's just ingrained, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, so I think it's just funny, new descriptors.
We gotta expand our circles. You know, this is like when you were like in kindergarten and someone had that really, really great, those marbles, remember, with the colors in it and stuff, and you thought they were cute. You're like, wow, you wanna play? Sure, yeah. And that's kind of how the friendship started. We gotta go back to some of them principles. So.
And you don't have to whisper the word Black.
I know. We know we're Black already.
It's not a bad word. Okay.
It doesn't.
Because they'll be like,
I'm comfortable with it.
talking to me at
all
work
right.
or something, and someone will be like, you know, Karen, I'll be like, Karen so-and-so, and they'll be like, no, Black Karen. and like it like dips down when they say black.
The show The Office, you guys have seen the show The Office, and the character Oscar is Mexican, and he asked him, he was like, so is there another word besides Mexican that you use? Because, Mexicans is like, offensive.
Mexico.
I think he said Mexican was a derogatory or offensive.
Now, this one, let's skip one.
Oh, did I skip one?
Get it, go ahead. Okay, now, again, in the can do, okay, come on, you got it? Okay. This is my platform. This one pains me immensely because I think this is the easiest one to do. It is so win-win that when a person comes to you, particularly a young person comes to you like, wow, I saw that poster you did, or I really like that logo, or I heard that you're the graphic designer. How do you do this? For you to just answer the damn question.
And not be a jerk about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's very important because for some reason, as you get older, you still think you're 17, but you're not. You could be very well into your 30s and be 17 years removed from being 17. So it's important to talk to 17-year-olds occasionally so that you can find out what you don't already know. And then you can, dispose that wisdom onto them as well. I purposely went into screen printing because I can teach more people the trade of screen printing than I can the art of graphic design. I can't give you a style, okay? I can teach you how to burn a screen. I can teach you how to code a screen. I can teach you how to do discharge printing and things of that nature. I can't necessarily gift you a style. I can teach you how to use Photoshop as a utility, but as a creative tool, I can't teach you how to experiment.
Yes.
So the idea that knowing what you can teach efficiently and then being able to do it, but also understanding that you still can be a student to a person that's younger than you. As long as you interact with them, then you always continue in your own education.
And sort of what you were talking about before about access, if you know that you are afforded a particular level of access through whatever means, sort of that old thing that Spider-Man Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility. You really have that responsibility to mentor and teach the generation, after you, so they can come up in the way that you have come up. With a lot of the designers, I've interviewed right now close to 100 designers for Revision Hat, and I would say maybe 5% of them have had a mentor. I usually ask that question a lot, like, did you have any mentors? Did anyone sort of help you out? No, I just kind of paid my own way. And some of them had particular horror stories and things like that where they may have asked someone to be their mentor and got turned down brutally about it. So you really, if you know that you're in that position of privilege, whether you're, a studio owner or a shop owner, even just someone that's been in the industry for a long time, and you know someone that has an interest, help them out. It really costs nothing to help. It costs you nothing to help.
And the thing is that what really cracks me up is when I meet other designers who are like, no, or couldn't do that. I don't know how to connect with them. I don't know what to say. You don't remember being young? You didn't get to this spot without somebody saying, okay, here's how you do this. It just burns me, and so I don't turn anybody away. Okay, here's a good one. Okay. Again, no money involved, okay? No money. Go to a school and talk to the kids about design. And now, I used to work for Cleveland Public Schools here, and it's 122 schools. 120, we don't even talk about the charter schools, the Catholic schools. It's enough schools here where everybody can go and hit one school, one classroom, one art teacher, and just tell some other kid about design. Because you need to understand, your art teacher is not required to talk about design. He or she is not required. So we, again, disseminate the message.
I would say there might already be programs and things in place for a lot of this stuff, so tapping into something that exists, you don't have to start from scratch. In Chicago, there's a program called Emoja, which is essentially putting Latinos and Black professionals back inside of schools that are underserved and in low-income communities, just for exposure, just so that kids see an adult in a positive role who's successful in their career life and go, oh, okay, cool, like, that person looks like me and they're doing well. There's hope, there's a chance. I want to learn more about this person and sort of dig into how they figured it out. And you can be super inspiring just by showing up.
And don't be scared to go to parallel schools.
Yeah.
You know, they
offer me to do that.
Yeah, they do. I mean, you'd be surprised. If you contact some of these schools and see what their needs are. I really doubt they're going to just turn you away. They need help regardless. So reach out. I mean, growing up, I didn't have mentors. I told Jacinda plenty of times. I wish I met you when I was younger. I wish you would have been my excellent mentor for me when I was having those anxieties. But I didn't have any people of color mentor me. I was fortunate enough that the white teachers I did have believed in me and they cared enough, to guide me and get me where I am today. Are we turning around and doing that for the generations onwards?
I also think just about, I was the first person in my family to go to college, and I think traditionally the move would have been maybe in like a Latino household, would have been like, great, like here's our first kid and they're going to college. And if I said that I'm going to study design, they'd be like, no, you should study something that's going to like make money and like do well for the family and like, go be a doctor or whatever. My parents weren't that way. They were super supportive. Again, I think I lucked out, but that's just another like access privilege sort of thing. Like if the opportunity is rare for you to even go to college, it's even more rare that you're going to be supported by your family to study design. It just doesn't compute.
This next one, again, no money. Now this one is for the people who don't want to work or talk to the young people because they're afraid. Just let them watch you. Just open up your door, open up your office door, and let the young people watch you. Now they won't talk to you, okay? They're like looking at you like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. So you don't gotta talk to them. They won't talk to you, but they are gonna watch everything you do. In fact, if you review their portfolio 3 years down the road, some of the stuff that they saw you doing, they might be doing it too.
Observational research.
Observation, yes, totally. Oh, okay. Now this is my other pet peeve. Donald, you want this one or what?
No, I'm not.
But this is like seeking out vendors and partners in the work that you do, and looking for ones that are run by women or run by other minorities, and I think that's the main point.
Yeah. If it
Super
doesn't,
talent out there.
if it doesn't matter who or what they take pictures of, then why would you not?
Well, yeah, I was looking for agencies or for companies that do like a standard bid proposal or something. Just include that in your bid. If you're saying, you might say that you would give preference to women-owned or minority-owned businesses and things like that. That's one line, easy to do.
Oh. Antonio, I know that one. Linda,
we've already talked about that. But like seeing the world opens you up to other things, you bring that back to your work. It's pretty straightforward. And it doesn't have to be like around the world to travel. I mean, you can travel just to a different neighborhood and see what that is like. So I think it's just, Mark Twain's got a great quote around travel and then breaking down.
I work downtown. There's a lot of people that just come in, do the 9 to 5 and go back to the suburbs and never, ever know what the hell is happening around Cleveland. There's like so much going on, just that, maybe change it on Friday night, just go out to, one of the neighborhoods between here and, your 30-minute commute back to, whatever suburb, like that alone can start opening up your eyes.
You just described DC and Baltimore in a nutshell. Baltimore has some of the biggest top to bottom murals full sides of buildings in some of the worst places. So your reward for going to these places and seeing this incredible art. Now, there was a show based around Baltimore for 5 seasons called The Wire, and they managed to not put any of the murals in the show. Maybe they didn't want to upstage the shooting and the drugs. I don't know. The principle of it is actually living in Baltimore and actually stopping and getting out of my car and to look at these murals gave me a completely different perspective of the indigenous population. This is how the people live here think. And I was surprised that when I went to Philly, I found the same thing. Just moving around Philly, top to bottom pieces, and they were numbered to let you know, like, oh, this was a commissioned project from Philadelphia. We would rather have this here in this dilapidated alley than just normal graffiti, which there's nothing wrong with it in my book. But the principle that they commission these pieces and they're huge murals, but they're often overlooked. This is the type of thing that you get when you explore areas and you just conquer that fear. When you are, when you actually live in that city, experience the city. Don't just, limit yourself to parts of the city, because that limitation actually comes out in your expression. The limitation comes out in what you create, whether you know it or not.
Okay, now I used to work for the government, and it was so funny to me because they would be the first ones to go, oh, is that a black person? Well, we're the government. We're supposed to serve everybody. So I'm just going to slip these pictures in here. I mean, no one said I couldn't do it. It wasn't until it made it up to some mayoral person that way. It was like, oh, do you have anyone with the Latino people in it? So no one cared that I picked the photos. And as a designer, they just wanted a picture. So who was in the picture was irrelevant to them. It was my little 2 seconds of power. You ain't gonna say, but I could have used one of Linda's things. They wouldn't even care, So this is the easy one. You have the power as a designer. Just use diverse imagery,
Anyone who's makes video or just makes images as a photographer or video maker, you will make so much money if you just shoot photography of people of color, not looking like shitty stock photos. Those real corny faces, they just photograph just doing regular things.
We were making products for them. We spent a lot of time looking at stock, and it's hard to find that group. It's I thought about it myself. Just quit, just go shoot the first photos, done. And experiment. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But what you often find is for the corporate shots, there's white people and the Asian, and that's the safe diversity.
Yes.
And it's,
I bought all of these mock-up images, right? Which is hands on mobile devices, and you can throw your own screens in there. And all the hands were white hands, and it made me super sad. So you would make more money if you make some mock-ups with some different shades of hands.
I tell my photographer friends that all the time, you will make bank if you do some micro stock of just hands with devices. Hands on a keyboard, hands doing stuff, that are not white hands, that are brown hands, that are black hands, and you will make a lot of money because people, actually there's even, let's do a shameless plug, there is a post on our vision path about that. But about 10 places to find multicultural stock photos. But it's just important because it showcases, the diversity that we know is out here in the real world. But it's a niche that needs to be filled.
I once had a client. I was doing a job over the Caribou House here in Cleveland, and it was a gospel play, and it was talking about the history of gospel, and put some clip art up there. And the director, Otis Salih, was like, Jacinda, these are white people. They're silhouettes of this. It's a silhouette. He swore he could tell the difference in the silhouette that is white people. He made his black cast stand there for 25 minutes while I shot silhouette pictures of them because he was confident that he could tell the silhouette was white. There is a market for this, people.
Especially with show of hands, many people have challenges finding legit, diverse photography out there working.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even icons, like icons that are used for profiles and things. Absolutely.
Yeah, so we've kind of talked this one already through
Yeah.
recruiting talent from different places, and then ways of doing this at work.
And what this one is really for all of the people who see themselves in a policy-making kind of position. And actually, I have to give kudos really quick to Jeff Finley, because this panel today is his plan. This panel today is the beginning of his diversity plan. So we're really excited that you all are all here to support and encourage him to continue to do things like this. You know, I kind of called Jeff up one day a few years back, like, Jeff, you don't know me, but you're going to know me. And so it doesn't take much. This hasn't really cost you anything but a couple crazy calls and emails from me and my friend. I mean, you're fine, right? So this is something that everybody can do, and it's not hard. You don't have to do anything as blatant as saying, okay, I'm going to hire 2 Latino people today. Check the box. You don't. It doesn't have to be that serious. Like, hey, listen, when we go out and interview, we're going to go to one of these HBCUs. We're going to go to a school in the urban neighborhood. We're gonna let some kids from City School of Arts come down here and watch us.
You know, we know you have to hire the best, right? That's what you're always looking for, the best talent. We just wanted to make sure that you're casting the net as far as you could, you know, not in that same circle, not in that same stream that you're always fishing. Just throw it out there.
Yeah.
Especially considering something like Go Media, which is like huge. If a school found out that Go Media was coming and scouting, do you know how happy or how excited the design community there would be that they got recognized and even fall under the scope of that? I mean, there's a whole bunch of different examples that you can give of that, because as you get deeper into design, you start to become familiar with these brands and the brands that you use and different things that you depend on. And at the same token, you might feel marginalized already and feel like, oh, they'll never hire me, just because they never pay any attention to what I'm doing, the school that I came from, or any of the type of work that I do. You know, in actuality, when you show like, yeah, no, you are on my radar. Even if you don't hire, the idea that I was on that radar, you know, it's just a beautiful thing.
For HBCUs, I know it's important because there are HBCUs out there that do have arts programs, but you'd be surprised how many of them don't have any recruiters that will come from agencies that will go to an HBCU and try to recruit talent and things like that. Like, I sit on the AIGA, the National Diversity and Inclusion Task Force, and so that's one of the things that I'm tasked with doing, is looking at HBCUs and identifying HBCUs where they have programs where we can talk to them about doing student chapters and things like this, because it helps, you know, just the industry as a whole to bring in more people that have different, you know, backgrounds and things of that nature.
To wrap things up, and I told you guys that there wasn't going to be anything lacking in this discussion, but somebody wants to know about the anti-patterns. There are things that we can do to be inclusive. What are the anti-patterns? What do we need to know that should be avoided?
I know it's really huge.
There's 2. And when we're talking about being inclusive, diversity, trying to attract people, what are some of the things that people are doing that they should not be doing? Whether it's the language that they use.
I don't think that they should always fall back on, because the language that I hear is particularly out of the tech community in Silicon Valley is about culture fit. You know, because there is also sort of an evident bias that's known as pattern matching, where you're only going to recruit and match people that might look like or be like your current workforce. So there are ways that you can try to break out of that in some sort of way. I think that would be one way.
Okay, you get the last word, Maurice. So Luis, Linda, Maurice, Donald, Antonio, Jacinta, thank you.